Welcome, everybody, to Chocobo Central, Episode 2. I know it's been a little while, but I said that in the first episode. These are going to come out when they come out, so if you have a problem with that, you can just go ahead and eat a big old bag of dicks. It's the big old bag. Big old bag.
Yeah,
not even like gummy bear like dicks, like just like crunchy, like just never mind.
That's
all right,
vivid.
so Kyle,
disease one's great.
My good buddy Kyle over here from Current Gen Podcast. He's on there with me and Tim.
Hello.
And Jeff, and sometimes once in a blue moon, Derek. How you doing, buddy?
Shut up once or twice. Yeah, I'm doing good. I'm doing real good. I appreciate being here, talking a little like focus, like Final Fantasy focus here. So
absolutely.
nice.
Did you enjoy your nap? Did you have a good nap?
I had a great nap. Oh my god. There's nothing
Naps are
better
nice.
than there's nothing better than an after work coma, you know. So
That's right. And we have our good buddy over here, our frost giant to the north. We have Jesse. Jesse, how are you?
Going?
Good. How are
Doing
you?
well. Ready to fight about Final Fantasy.
No, we're not gonna fight.
Sure, yeah, no, Final
I know-
Fantasy 16 news hasn't come out, so you got us all together to argue about this. That's the thing, right?
Typical frost giant with his giant club just swinging around, ready to battle. Like, no, we're gonna have a nice conversation. It's fine. This is going to be episode 2 is going to be Final Fantasy X versus Final Fantasy 13. Which one is best?
What is the greatest hallway simulator?
JRPG simulator.
JRPG simulator, excuse me.
Because there are actually walking simulators, and that's a separate thing. So
Yeah.
we're not going to talk about that. We're going to talk about cool stuff like Japanese games. So we're going to break this down by some specific categories first, and then at the end it's just kind of, just whatever, miscellaneous. But what I wanted to start with you guys is discussing the gameplay. I actually have a little blurb here for each one. If you don't mind lending an ear.
Yeah.
So Final Fantasy X's gameplay is called Conditional Turn-Based Battle System, or CTB. It is a turn-based format that pauses the battle during each player's turns. Also, a swapping system allows the player to replace an active party member in combat with an outside party member at any time. So 10 was a little different compared to some of the previous ones, whereas it was active time battle. So basically meters would be filling out in real time, and same with the enemies. So then they would attack at different points and so on and so forth. Final Fantasy was a little more slow paced, a little more strategic. It was all based off of like essentially everyone's speed stat, and you'd actually see like the portraits of enemies and your characters in the top right or left, I forget. So it was more kind of like just taking your time and figuring out the strategy of how you wanted to do things. 13 is a little more active, uses a variant on the series' traditional active time battle ATB system. The player only controls the lead character, while the remaining 2 characters are controlled by the game's AI. Which, I mean, technically with the auto battle, you are telling them to do certain things, but you're not like, you don't have separate menus for each character, where like with the regular RPG usually. So, but yeah, each one is a little bit different. Final Fantasy X's a little slower. 13's a little more traditional with being active.
The series has really found a way to like take the turn-based element and just like really do every single version of it.
There's so many different kinds.
Yeah,
there's so many different kinds at this point.
It's more than just like hitting a button in a menu.
There's
a lot going on depending on which game you're doing.
Especially nowadays, because people don't seem to like traditional turn-based anymore. Not as much.
It's a frowned on thing. Yeah.
Jesse, how do you feel?
I still really enjoy turn-based.
Mm-hmm.
That's why I find it pretty easy to go back and play old games. Like it was just this year that I played and beat Final Fantasy X.
The longest ongoing running joke, which, some people
sometimes
still
out of spite he didn't finish it.
Yes. But that was a good day. That was a good day.
But yeah, so I mean, if given the choice between the two, I'd probably prefer a more active battle system, but I still find it pretty easy to go back and play traditional turn-based systems. I think they're very fun. You have a lot more control because you're you go from character to character, telling them exactly what you want, and as you said, you have the little bar up in the corner, so you know exactly who's going to have the next turn. Mm-hmm. It's a little more strategic.
Yeah, I like the pacing of it with 10 specifically, because again, it's all based off of the speed stat. So then you can cast haste on a character, or it was a Histaga, which is like the whole party.
Yes.
If I'm pronouncing Histaga correctly. And basically that, and it actually shows you in real time before you cast it. It'll like move like the spaces, like move your character up, so then you know for sure you're gonna go before a certain other character. Or with 10, the elemental system's actually really, or it's not just elements, but like using elemental for an example, like with the Flan enemies. Like if there's an ice Flan, and you bring out Lulu, or you don't have Lulu out yet, and you need to bring her out to cast fire to essentially take it out in one hit, you could check to see if she's going to, take her turn before that enemy does his. So there's just a lot of like kind of like elements going on. There are a lot of things happening, but like, again, it's not active. It's not kind of throwing you off or stressing you out. You're just kind of taking your time and reading the situation. So I think, honestly, that's probably my favorite turn-based system out of any of the Final Fantasies, to be honest.
I would agree.
That's not like active.
Yeah, they also get rid of one of the biggest like annoyances for me. It's like I hate like spending a turn to like switch a character out. I think it's the dumbest mechanic in any, which is in every RPG. I just think it's dumb.
It is.
It took me a whole turn to slap someone's hand and tag them in. In this game, right. They just come right in. Whoever you need there, boom, you just put them right in. As long as they're not in the party, you can't obviously skip turns.
Yeah.
But whoever's slotted for that, whoever's to go next, you can put anybody in there who isn't already on the field. And I think
because you're making the sacrifice, because it's like, if that character's not going to go before who you want them to go before to do a certain attack, then it's like, well, that's your choice, because you can back out and be like, all right, never mind, you can go with it. So
it's nice to be able to do that. And you were saying about haste, like how I don't know, useful it is in this game. I don't think there's any other game in the series for me where I use buffs as much as I do in 10. I think they're so important in 10. Like you really have to use like haste and defenses and turtle and stuff like that just to make sure that like you're staying above, especially on like fights like Yunalesca and stuff like that. There's just some brutal fights in this game that are just like, we're not holding your hand, man. Sorry if you can't figure it out.
Yeah,
they're gonna go 7 more times before your characters do. Figure out how to survive. And it's
there was there's the Seymour fight in the mountains.
Yeah, because
I remember that one giving me some. I think that was like the first fight, and that's pretty far into the game. But that was like really the first fight that I think I died like once, maybe twice, and I was like, oh, okay, all right. I'm not. I wasn't expecting this. Like, okay.
He really puts up a fight, and Yunalesca is not too far after that. And I think she's one of the hard. For me, I just couldn't understand what the game. Even when I go back and play it, I'm like, what does it want me to do? Like, I forget what the trick is or whatever. I find it to be such a hard fight. Even Sin at the end, like sometimes he gets an unfair amount of turns. You're just like, he's going again. Like,
he's a big bastard. He doesn't care.
Big bastard. Yeah. So
Jesse, you like 13?
I do. Just to counter Kyle's point about how
counterpoint.
You use the buffs more in Final Fantasy X. I will say in Final Fantasy 13, you actually use buffs a lot. Like they have entire grids based on, I can't remember what they're called in that game. They're kind of like the dress spheres from 10
the paradigm shift. You're paradigm shifting between the different like classes, which I didn't like that they like gave them weird names. I kind of wish they just kept it traditional, like black mage, white mage, but whatever. That's a separate thing. Who cares?
Yeah.
Continue.
Yeah. So there's one of those modes it's purely about sending out different buffs.
Saboteur, I think, or no, not Saboteur.
No, not Saboteur. It's the opposite of the Saboteur.
Yeah. I can't remember.
Synergist?
Synergist.
Yeah. So
no, and you really need one of your party members to be and 13 is so interesting because like you really need to have different things on the field at the same time, because if I know you run into a character, it's easy to get party wiped in that. Which
it's a fast game.
Well, yeah, and I found myself dying quite a few times in 13 just on regular enemies because I just didn't have the right setup for my characters. Yeah. So that's a game that pushes back for sure.
Well, one thing that's I will say is super frustrating about 13 when it comes to the combat is if your main character is knocked out, it's just game over.
Yeah.
Which is unlike every other Final Fantasy game.
Right.
Phoenix Downs don't work out. Your character's allergic to them. Whoever
Right,
you're
yeah. It makes no sense.
Yeah, no, it doesn't. But I don't know why they did that. I don't know if they were just like, well, listen, we're giving you all this control, like, you know, you can heal real quick by auto battle. I mean, I don't know.
I remember the rumor was always, well, we only let you control one character in Final Fantasy 13 because Americans suck at video games. I remember that always being like a rumor, like on GameFAQs boards or something.
That has progressively become the case. But...
Yeah, and I remember that being the case for like old Final Fantasy 2. It's like, we're not going to give them that Final Fantasy. It's too hard. They're going to get another one, and we're going to call it something else, you know. And they do that to us a lot, you know. So I find it funny that it's like, yeah, you dumb Americans couldn't wrap your head around 3 characters, so we just let you control one, you know. And I'm like, I believe it, you know, even if it's not true, I believe it.
To be honest, I think that system came from the fact that 13 was sort of behind schedule as far as like when it was supposed to be like made and when it actually came out and everything. So I strongly feel like that's why the auto battle thing is there. Like in the beginning when they were like, all right, so what's the battle system going to be? Like, I mean, we can go with this, go with that. I mean, but we also have to worry about the timeline here when we want to release this game. Let's do like an auto whatever thing.
And 13 was the one that started this, like, we're always late, like, train, right? Like,
yeah.
Because it wasn't 12.
No,
like, 12 came out on time, right?
Sorry.
Like,
12 was.
Was it? Did it get pushed back a lot? Okay.
12 was in development hell. I remember the lead I think the first director, if it was the director, the first director actually got sick, I think.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Which then kind of threw off the timeline of when the game came out. And then somebody had to take over.
Uh-huh.
Okay. So that's why like there's the whole thing with like Vaughn in there and him kind of just seeming like he was like tossed in to kind of be like, oh well, we had a blonde guy in 10 and people love him, so like have another blonde guy in there.
Yeah, put him in a vest, it'll be great, you know. Yeah, we were all there. Yeah,
but like we all know like Balthair and kind of like Ash are like the main characters really like of 12. Like we all know that. So
and that's another game that it took like 3 or 4 go-throughs, you know. It's like fine. And this last one I went through, you know, I finally actually beat the game. I was like, oh, this game's actually, it's just Star Wars. It's good. I actually like the story of this.
The thing with
Vaughn
13
and Pinelo aside, they can take a hike big time.
No, Vaughn, shut up, Vaughn. The thing with 13, I think maybe it doesn't get enough credit for, and I know I'm always being sarcastic with Jesse about 13, but like with 13, you can manually do your attacks if you want. You don't.
Yes, you can.
Like, and that's like right from the beginning of the game. You don't have to do the auto battle. It's just convenient at first because you don't have a lot of abilities and things to sort of like do. You don't have a lot at your disposal yet. But later on in the game, like much later on, like you have to kind of pick and choose what you're doing sometimes. With like the really like tough guys, like the optional bosses and so on and so forth. Like you can't just auto battle through those guys, at all. So yeah, I mean, I think 13 definitely at least like kind of praise it for that because it's like it has like 2 things going on. You can kind of take it easy at sometimes, but then you do have to focus at other times. So,
and I do have to give it credit for the whole paradigm shifts too, because I do like that mechanic.
Mm-hmm.
I know that was 10-2 the first one that did that in the series?
The dress spheres?
Yeah, they did that like mid battle like class change. No, 3 did, right? 3 you could change
so like
classes.
if you wanna talk like just basic like class system, like that was Final Fantasy 3, I think.
Yeah,
you could change them what they were. Yeah,
they have like classes, and then Final Fantasy 5 had like a bigger emphasis on jobs. They called them.
Yeah, jobs. That's right. Yeah.
But yeah, like I think like 13, as far as kind of doing it in that style, where you're kind of bundling different like sort of classes together or jobs, to kind of have like a string of like this collection of like, all right, this style of strategy with these jobs or classes or whatever. That was definitely it's probably the only one as far as I'm concerned.
Mm-hmm.
So what was cool about the paradigm shifts was that like it auto-fills a few different paradigm shifts for you, like some suggested ones, but you can edit those, and then you can create a whole bunch more of them too. It adds a lot of layers to your strategy.
I think they got some of that idea from the Gambit system from 12, where they're like, okay, let's not dumb that down. That's not the right word, but like let's make a light or diet version of that. We'll put it in here, and I really like because like you could have 2 synergists in the party. Like if you're going against someone with a lot of like unrelenting offense, so you need to have two people like pumping you full of defense while you're attacking. Like you can do that, and you can really have a lot of changes in that. Where if we're doing apples to oranges here, Final Fantasy X, that's not the case. Like your
Right.
character is your character is your character, and it's all about
they
putting
actually
the right
have
character on the field.
specific like classes that they're not labeled as classes in 10, but like Lulu's the black mage.
Yes.
Waka is like the archer or whatever, so to speak, because he does like sort of like from a distance, or he hits like flying enemies and so on and so forth. But
one thing that's cool about 10 though is that while there's definitely that recommended route that they want you to take, there is some flexibility there.
There is. That's true. You can mold through the sphere grid. That's very true. Yeah.
I mean, definitely.
I've seen some people actually make Kimahri a useful character. I know, it's shocking, guys. I know.
Kimahri's like a blue mage, which is like, I've never cared about like blue mages, but I know some people are super into like the kind of wacky like jobs of Final Fantasy. But yeah, he's a blue mage. Like that's what he is.
You're right. I actually never put them together, but you're right.
Yeah. Which is funny because he's blue. So
yeah, that is very on the nose. Yeah.
Yes, it is. So yeah, I mean, I personally think the combat of both of these games are strong in their individual like instances in different ways. I don't think one system. I mean, I prefer 10s between the two. Like if I had to pick one, but I think they both have strong combat systems. So I don't know
if I were to choose between the two, I think that I would lean 13. I like the paradigm shifts. I like the stagger system.
Yeah.
Good. Stagger's good. Yeah.
Yeah,
where you're switching between like the Ravager and the Commando to build up that bar, and then you can do heavy damage to them. I do like that whole system too.
That does feel good to see that meter like build up super fast and then just kind of just unleash on them. So
especially when you do that against a boss too, it's like
definitely.
And, for me, I guess it comes down to what's got the better like summon system, and like for me that's 10 because like I don't like the vehicle I'm gonna summon a motorcycle. I'm like, okay, whatever. I do like that the summons like kind of take a different type of form in 13 though, which we can get into like down the line. But like in 10, I just like the classic. I'm just gonna call a Bahamut real quick. Boom. Here it is.
I do like to echo that. I do like where in 10, unlike the more recent entries, you can do summons whenever the heck you want to.
Yes,
Also,
it was so frustrating in 15 where it's like it just happens when it wants to. I'm like, but how does that make sense? Like,
but it looked cool as hell.
Oh, so
cool.
It did. Yeah, I just wish I could do that literally whenever I wanted to.
Oh yeah, no, absolutely.
Like even if it can only happen once every 10 battles, like let me have control over it. Like to go through like the whole last section and never get a summon was so annoying to me. I'm like, I just got bad RNG. Like
I know.
All right.
Whatever. That game, that's a whole other can of worms.
Can we have a whole episode about how 15 was the biggest bungle in Final Fantasy history?
Dude, yeah, we can actually, yes, because like
I
would love
that game. Too.
I would talk about like
I don't hate that game. That game
I
to
don't
me
either.
me is almost like sort of the same, but like a different like approach with my frustration with 13. Whereas like I just feel like there's like lost potential there with the story.
Yeah, I like Kingsglaive. I even watched the anime Brotherhood. Like, there was a lot of like road to hype for that game. And then when we got there, I was like, did they forget the story inside of this game? Like, did they just completely?
Right. Let's do characters first.
Characters
before we get to story here. Jumping ahead. All right, so characters. We got Final Fantasy X's characters. We have actually, I'd like to ask you guys. So the main character, Final Fantasy X, I pronounce it Titus. How do you guys pronounce it?
It's supposed to be Titus, but it's Titus because it's a tide. He's water elemental.
Whoever said it's supposed to can eat a bag of dicks, like I said.
It's just because the Japanese, there's no I sounds, I think.
But Titus sounds stupid as hell.
It does sound stupid. And the thing is, he is a water elemental of the tide. His name is Titus.
Sure. Yeah, so that makes even more sense. So it's Titus, right? It's Titus.
It is.
Yeah, it is.
We've decided it's Titus. So we got Titus, the main character. We have Yuna. Which Jesse is a big
the best character in Final Fantasy history.
Boom.
So
I love hearing that.
I mean, that's a stretch for sure. We have Waka, the real best character.
No, I'm logging off. Here we go.
We got Waka. We have Lulu, who she's beautiful.
Great.
She's just a beautiful lady. We have Auron, the silent, cool, like sort of samurai vibes. We have Kimahri, also a silent type. And then we got Riku, the kind of bubbly, bouncy, character of the crew. And then we shift over to 13. We got Lightning, which is not actually her real name, but we're just going to call her Lightning because that's what they call her. Saz, who has a little chocobo buddy in his hair. Super adorable. You do. Snow, who's just like dude bro, like I'm just gonna.
Hey, it's Troy Breaker, bro.
Dude,
have a little respect.
Yes, Troy Breaker, great. Snow is like your quintessential anime character of like, I'm just gonna punch super hard and I'm just gonna overcome this.
Yeah, I'm gonna punch through all my problems.
Right? Yeah. Then we have Hope, which is actually Jesse's favorite character ever.
The Vaughn of this game.
Yes, the Vaughn of this
game. He manages to make Vaughn look good.
Yeah.
Yes. There you go. Then we have Vanille, who just super weird accent. Her voice is weird. I don't know what it is about her voice, but there's something weird about her voice.
Most people cite her as the worst character in the game, and I don't know. I don't understand how anybody could dislike her more than Hope. I just don't understand it.
Yeah, I'll totally take that argument. Yeah.
I think I give Hope maybe a little bit more of the benefit of the doubt because like he like really is like down in the which because his mom dies. Spoiler alert. And he watches it happen. So like and he's younger than Vanille, I think. So it's like, all right, well, he's like super young and like, yeah, I get it, dude. Like, you don't know what to say to Snow because he thinks it's his fault, blah, blah, blah. But no, I get it. Hope is annoying for sure. Absolutely. I totally agree. Vanille and then Fang.
Who's awesome.
Fang's cool. Yeah.
Cool vibes.
She should have gotten her own game.
She should. Yeah. All right. So, 10 has 7 characters. Final Fantasy 13 has 6. Does anybody have any sort of specific feelings about specific characters that you want to discuss, or?
I think this one's pretty open and shut. Final Fantasy X is the better character.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely.
Certainly.
Now, I will go to bat for the ones for 13, to be honest, because I do like Lightning. I think
Lightning is awesome. That was my big takeaway, like this last playthrough. That
she's a little too punchy in the beginning, though. Like she punches Snow a lot in the first like couple hours of the game. I'm like, chill out.
Come on, you met the guy.
But I mean, he wants to save his fiance, her sister.
He's banging her little sister, dude.
Yeah, but he wants to save her, and she's just like, shut up, and she's like punching him. Like he wants to save her. Like, what's your deal?
Which is literally what you're doing right now, FYI,
right?
Trying to save her. Yeah.
But I get it, and she had to be edgy like Cloud, So
right. Yeah. So I do enjoy Lightning. I think Fang is awesome. Mm-hmm. And I do enjoy Saz also. I think he's a fun character.
Yeah.
But
it takes a second to get it to grow into his own, and then once his story unfolds, you're like, oh,
he seems like the most level-headed, right?
Yeah, I would say so. Yeah, his voice of reason type, the dad of the group,
Yeah, so. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, but where Final Fantasy, I think, has the edge is that Final Fantasy X doesn't have any, like, objectively bad characters either.
I would totally
they're all enjoyable to some extent.
Yeah.
I know Waka, like, we joke about Waka, and, like, his name is just, I mean, like, I just think...
super racist.
Yeah,
he does hate the Albans, but
a little bit.
But to be fair, he has a reason to hate them. Like, it's just that just adds that kind of like that.
I'm too afraid to even do a mimic of his voice, to be honest. How racist
Waka.
Yeah. This whole time, I'm just like, don't do it. Do it.
But his story is interesting though, and that's.
I like Waka a lot. I like his brother. Like there's a lot of really cool stuff. There's a lot of really cool stuff going on with that character, and he's your boy, and I like that.
Yes.
I like anytime in anime, it's like there's two dudes who are like they're boys. You know what I mean? Like they're boys thick and thin. And like
immediately, right? Like
you get that
like,
with Waka.
That dude's drowning over there. Like we gotta go take care of him.
Yeah. Now you owe me a life debt, blonde boy. Anyways, yeah. I think it's super cool. I think that their relationship is very interesting, and I just like having those like that brotherhood between those two. Because like Tidus kind of takes the play. Like he even gives Tidus his brother's sword. Like there's a moment where he's like, "Yeah, you're my new little brother."
Literally the sword he's holding on the cover art of the game.
Yeah. It's got a tag on it. That's why his name is Tidus.
Though. Yes. It's crazy. I like Tidus as a main character. He starts off as like kind of like the dumb jock, and then he gets thrown into this world, this unknown world that he's not from, And as the story progresses, he matures. Like there is a difference between him in the beginning and him at the end.
Yeah.
And even in the middle, like you can see the progression there, and kind of like, him gaining feelings for Yuna, and that kind of like feeding into him wanting to help her with this pilgrimage that she's on.
Yeah.
We can obviously go into more detail about that in the story section, but
Yeah.
I like Titus because I just think, as far as like with characters, a good character that, like, if there's an arc, there's like an actual noticeable arc, then it's like, to me, all right, well, that's a good character. As far as whatever happens in that arc, you may not be interested in it, and that's fine. But I mean, I like the story of this game, so I think his arc is interesting.
Well, yeah, and I think it's just from going from like a very selfish like sports star, to like a selfless hero. Like it's a huge arc. It's a major change, and
Yes.
you love to see it in a game with generic blonde spiky boy haired, or like you do, like if you're just gonna get another character that looks like every Final Fantasy character, like at least you got a lot of substance with this one. So I really enjoy
selflessness is actually a good term to attach to 10, because literally what the summoners are doing is selfless as hell. So
everything's super bleak in this universe.
Yes,
and
yes.
everyone celebrates it. Like, yeah, we marched these kids off to die. Woo! Yeah, good summoners. Like, it's very
right?
dark.
Yeah, I know. But yeah, I mean, 13. It's tough with 13 because like I find I'm struggling to find specific things to say about those characters, just because mainly, and I actually should have just said disclaimer in the beginning. I don't know if you guys want to throw disclaimers. I've only played 13 front to back once.
Yeah.
10 I've played front to back like several times. Not as much as 7, 8, or 9. But like a lot. Probably upwards of 10. Which is Final Fantasy 10, so around there. But so I connect with those characters, and I just know them better than 13's characters.
Same. But I do have a little bit of a bias there as well, where I've played 10 more, but 13 does have some good, like, again, Lightning is really interesting. I know that her story goes some really awesome places in her sequels. And in general, like I don't mind like Fang and Zaz as well. I really like where Zaz's story goes, and it actually makes Vanille an interesting character because of what's happening with those two. Whereas like she's just kind of like this, wow, you're an overly optimistic, like, let's just get it done, like, type or whatever. And then there's lots of moments where suddenly she's kind of shaken, or suddenly she remembers something, or suddenly, and like there's some moments that, like, because of Zaz being such a good character, it kind of uplifts her story as well. And so there's some good stuff going on there. I'm trying to think of who the bad guys were, because we're talking characters. That's
I mean,
like part
there
of
was
the priest guy in 13.
Well,
Barthandelus.
Yeah,
Barthandelus.
Sure. Yeah, what a complex bad guy he is.
It's a complex name, right?
Yeah, sure. I'm trying to remember. Like, did he have any like cool speeches?
No, honestly.
Well,
yeah, I remember that being a part of 13 where I'm just like, what's going, like, who are we fighting?
So he talks in a very sort of like when I was watching that video of the ending, I actually liked the way he was speaking. Like, it was very like kind of cold and stoic, and like very like kind of like this sort of like almost like religious but like godly sort of manner of like you guys are literally just specks to me, like, and I'm just like all the way up here just looking down on you, sort of like. So the way he was talking in that, because again, it's been a long time since I've played the game front to back, so I don't remember a lot of the interactions with him throughout the game. But at the end there, I was like, oh, okay, he is menacing, just like from the way he's like sort of speaking. But like, yeah, I mean, Sin is like, he's just this giant beast thing that's floating around, and
it's hard to like hate. Because he's like an element almost, like it's not a character. But you have Seymour, and he's he's interesting, like he's
interesting looking.
Yeah, well, yeah, it's like a Sephiroth ripoff with like a really effeminate kind of gay voice.
Yes,
but, whatever, Seymour, you do whatever you need to do.
He's got the Rico Suave thing going,
Yeah, I mean, cool. It's cool, dude. I'm all for it. But like at first, like I remember the first time I played that game, I'm like, I'm not big into Seymour. But on subsequent revisits, I'm like, he's a really bad guy.
Oh yeah,
like,
the whole thing with is it his mom or dad? Both of them. There's the murdery stuff going on with him with his family.
Yes,
I forget who. I mean, I think it's the dad and the mom. I could be wrong.
Matria and Patriacide going on there.
Yeah, so like he's like disturbing and dark for sure.
and like learning about him by visiting that area where his people come from and everything like that, and they're like, yeah, he's crazy.
Yeah, he's a lunatic.
Tell him out. He's a lunatic. Yeah.
All of his people are crazy too.
That's true.
Like they blindly follow him.
Yes. Yeah. There's some really interesting stuff going on with his character that I didn't appreciate at first. Because I was just like, again, like we all grew up like liking Sephiroth. Like he's so cool and he murdered Aerith and spoilers. Whatever. The game's like 20 years old.
Hey,
30
the new
years
one
old,
might
whatever.
fix all that.
Yeah, they might.
We'll see,
probably.
Jesse. We'll see.
Most likely, to be honest. But anyways, coming off of that, like, or even like the oh my god, who's the bad guy in 9? Why am I blanking on? I don't know. That we got, and even 8.
I mean, technically, there is an actual bad guy at the very, very end. Jesus, why is his name escaping me? Yeah, hold on. Just
same
going,
here.
I'll look it up.
Yeah, and then the space time traveling witch in 8. Like we had a lot of really cool, like memorable bad guys with 7, 8, and 9. So when 10 kind of showed up, I'm just like, who the hell is
Kuja.
Seymour?
There we go. Jesus, Kuja, who is super effeminate, like super effeminate.
Yeah,
like,
time.
Yeah, but he's also pretty menacing too.
Yeah, I thought he was properly menacing.
Like similar vibes to Seymour, actually.
A bit now in retrospect, But I don't know. I think that like that stuff is good. And Sin, while not an actual character, you feel his presence the entire game. It's this oppressive.
Technically, he is a character, Kyle. Technically.
We
could shift to the story part now if you guys want, but 10 has the best segue, to be honest. That's my pick. 10
I think that's an easy
better character for sure.
Okay. All right. So here's the main thing. Here's the main course, Jesse. So for me, as far as RPGs or just really any game, for me, story is the most important thing. I can deal with like okay combat as long as the story is like really engrossing and interesting and you got great characters, blah 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 blah. So that being said, with Final Fantasy X, here's like a quick little blurb. The story of Final Fantasy X is told by Tidus, a sports star from the futuristic metropolis called Zanarkand. During a match, Tidus gets swept up to another world and joins Summoner Yuna and her friends on her journey to save the world of Spira from a rampaging monster known as Sin. Final Fantasy XIII, the story follows Lightning, a former soldier in Cocoon's Guardian Corps army, and 5 other people brought together by fate. They must face a series of trials while trying to change their destiny and stop an ancient conspiracy to destroy Cocoon from within. So, who wants to start? Who wants to start the dissection here? Do we want to just start? You know what? Let's get this out of the way. Actually, let's get this out of the way. All right. The laughing scene. All right. Let's just get the laughing scene out of the way. Okay.
I don't know. Is that a famous scene or something? I don't know what you're talking about.
Hey, watch.
Hey, you got pretty good.
You sound sad.
Yeah, maybe.
Want to scream?
I really don't think that's gonna help this time.
You know what? It's embarrassing to say this myself, but summoners and their guardians are kind of like Spira's ray of light. A lot of people in Spira depend on us. I learned to practice smiling when I'm feeling sad, you know. I know it's hard.
Yeah. I understand. I think.
Right. Now let's see what you can do.
Huh?
Come on.
This is weird.
Next, try laughing out loud.
What?
Come on, show me. You probably shouldn't laugh anymore. Too funny.
It was your idea.
Final Fantasy X. There's literally memes and GIFs.
What are you talking about? I've never seen this before.
The voice actor is aware of this. He's even like reenacted it. He thinks it's funny. He enjoys it. Whatever. The laughing scene, for anybody who doesn't know, in Final Fantasy X, after you leave, shoot, what was the name of the city? There's not really a lot of cities in Spira because most of them get destroyed, so it's a lot of villages. So there's like a main city. I can't remember the name.
Where the big Blitzball game was.
Yeah, there's a Blitzball game happening.
I can't think of the name either.
You're leaving there. Everyone's kind of like in sort of like a bummer mood. And Titus is trying to cheer up Yuna. So he's talking to her. They're having a conversation. He's trying to cheer her up. And then he does the laugh. And it's just a really just like awkward, as the kids would say, cringy, which I hate that damn word.
Yeah, it makes me
cringy laugh. And just people can't handle it. People just hate that scene. I think they don't understand that scene.
You know what's funny is that scene's actually very sweet and endearing. It's
yes.
just the execution, though, leaves a lot to be desired.
No, but hold on. So that's the thing. To me, the execution makes sense because he's just trying to act like a complete utter idiot.
Well, and he's not laughing. Like, he's forcing a laugh out too. Like that's not a real laugh. He's not actually laughing. You know,
he's purposefully doing.
He's being a purposeful buffoon. You know, to get to make her for sure. Yeah.
Yes, Jesse. Do you agree?
That laugh is a joke, man.
Yes, it is. Literally.
I don't care how you slice it.
So, as Kyle said, it is a very sweet scene. I get what he's trying to do.
Yeah.
But, oh my God, man.
But imagine having a friend in real life where, like, say, like, a family member just died, right? And they're like, I mean, you know, whatever, blah, blah, blah. And then they just do a really stupid, like, I don't know, just a dumb, like, I mean, you might laugh. You might kind of be like, dude, what do you do? Like, you're going to get some sort of, like, reaction that's not necessarily, like.
You're distracting them.
Yeah, you're being cringy right now, bro. Like, you're not going to do that in real life, right? So why is it cringy in this? Like, I don't Like,
I mean, I might. If someone started laughing in front of me above my dead mother, yeah, I'd be like, dude, you're being really cringy right now, bro. Not a great time for that.
All right, maybe.
No, I get what you're saying though. It's not like you are just trying to uplift someone's spirit. So I'm gonna do something crazy to get your mind off of it. It's just again like in the pantheon of fake laughs. It definitely earns its place there.
Yeah, I just
feel like the people to attack the subject or context of the scene, like they're completely off base because
I think they don't understand the context. Like people like I think some people just really get uncomfortable with certain things because they just might not necessarily. I think they don't necessarily understand.
What we don't understand.
Moment. Yes. But yeah, so I don't know if you guys are in agreement. Cool. If Jesse, you hate that scene, then that's fine.
I hate the scene.
I hate the lightning dodging more than that scene. I'll tell you that.
Yes, the lightning dodge.
There's other things I hate about this game besides the laughing scene. So.
But all right, so the laughing scene, whatever. All you people who are uncomfortable, you need to grow up. That's what I have to say. Grow up, be an adult. So. Final Fantasy X story. So you got Titus. He gets thrown into the world of Spira. He was in Zanarkand. He's confused. He doesn't understand. It's 1,000 years into the future, they say.
Something like that. Yeah.
You go through the story. You meet your characters. You find out about Sin. Sin reappears every 7 years after someone has defeated him. 7 years of peace. Then Sin comes back. So basically, you have all of these summoners going on a pilgrimage to all the different temples to gain the summons to then at the end, you get the final summon, which is the key to defeating Sin. But, plot twist, when you defeat Sin, you're the one that then becomes Sin yourself. And that's why Sin comes back. That's messed up, bro. You go on a pilgrimage to sacrifice yourself to then become this like entity, this life-destroying entity that then comes back 7 years later to just destroy those people that you just tried to save.
Yeah.
Fun time.
That's
something metaphor, cycle of violence, something philosophical there to chew on for sure. I think so.
I think that Final Fantasy X's story is a bit more straightforward. So let's just get that out of the way. Final Fantasy 13's is a little more convoluted. So I think that when you compare the two, I think that Final Fantasy X's will probably be more popular just because it is a bit more straightforward. It's easier to digest. The
way they deliver it to you, right?
Right. And the way it's delivered, yes. And the characters are more likable. I mean, that plays a huge role. So as we just discussed, the characters in 10 it's cut and dry that they're better. So as you're digesting the story, if you like the characters, you're probably going to like the story more also.
You're invested, right?
Right. You're more invested.
Sure.
Yeah, because I gave you, that was just off the top of my head. That's what I know of 10, just because I played it so many times, and like that's a main detail. I can't really say that with 13. I can't give you like here's like the
elevator pitch.
Yeah, I can't, because it's like I don't know. Like there's gods that are toying with people, and they put a tattoo on them, and they've become l'Cie. And if they don't succeed in their focus, then they become fal'Cie, which is like these crystallized looking creatures. But if they do complete their focus, then they just turn into crystal forever. So like, I mean, so it's just gods torturing people? Is that like...
Well, yeah, I mean...
Is that what it is?
The big takeaway for 13 is it's machine gods that are like have enslaved,
which is cool in theory.
It's so cool. Like the whole concept and backdrop of 13 is so rad.
Yeah.
I just wish I understood it a little more, because like I'm having a hard time being like, yeah, what's the greater story though? And like people are all wrapped up in it, and they're not happy about being wrapped up in it, so they're trying to get out of it. Like that's
Well, so as you said in your little synopsis, Dan, the overarching story of 13 is that you're fighting your destiny.
Yeah.
That is the basis of the story.
Well, that is what I mentioned here, because what was it? I think it actually Fate came up and Destiny. That was literally in that little blurb. Fate and Destiny.
Fate and Destiny.
Yeah.
And there's a part in 13 where like everyone chooses. They're like, screw this. Let's not do this anymore. And I thought that part was pretty poignant, because if we're talking about railing against your destiny or following it, that would be a part of that journey. Just going like, no, I don't want to do this. I don't want any part of this, and everyone like turning their back on it and stuff like that. And I thought that part was pretty interesting.
So Jesse, I know you've played 13 more than once, right?
3 times.
Okay. So is there any specific moments with 13 that resonate with you? Like, do you like 13's story more than 10 overall, or?
No, I do not.
Okay.
But I do feel like 13 gets railed on a bit more than it deserves in the story department. So there are several moments that I think are genuinely touching and moving. There's some, I don't know if you guys remember a lot of these scenes, but there's one scene where Lightning and Hope are on their own like journey together.
Right, because they separate.
Yes, because the whole party separates and kind of goes their own different ways.
Yeah.
And Lightning gives Hope her knife.
Yep.
Okay.
And it's meant as a thing, as in like trust and like, I'm not gonna turn my back on you, because it's a moment for Lightning, because she goes through the whole first part of the game basically trying to ditch the party.
Yeah.
Like she runs up far ahead, and it's a character moment for her.
Yeah.
And what that moment ends up doing is plays a role later when Hope and Snow when they meet up.
Okay.
There's also a moment where Saz and Vanille Sazh learns a secret that Vanille's been keeping or hasn't figured out a way to be able to say it. And they get into an argument that's all coordinated by one of the bad guys that they're playing right into her hands. And then they have a pretty emotional moment. And that's when Sazh gets his summon.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So, yeah, those are actually pretty important moments. Now that I
remember all those moments very well.
Yeah. So I do think there are moments in that game that do play a role in the overarching story.
Yeah.
Just like most Final Fantasy games have. Like you're talking about some of the moments in Final Fantasy X that are touching and hold importance to the overarching story. 13 has those too.
Yeah.
But I think what the problem is that where 13's story just isn't as cut and dry.
Yeah.
It's a little. I do think you need to play that game more than once to be able to really wrap.
And you have to read the stuff. You got to read all the codex.
Yes, so you have to read all of the things. Yeah,
that's my main gripe. And I mean, and obviously it's a personal preference. Like to me, I just want to be told a story. Like that's why I'm playing a video game, because otherwise I would just read a book, you know. Like that's
sure,
just what
and I get
do.
that too. I will say some of my favorite parts of world building are like in Resident Evil, where you get a notepad and you're like, wow, someone died in this room, you know. Like so,
yeah, but that's like little, a side thing, right?
Yeah, but those are also small little vignette like little thing, or even like The Witcher. You know you'll find someone's diary and it's like a small little thing.
Sure,
these are like paragraphs and paragraphs.
Yeah, it's a whole dictionary.
It's like a thesis.
It really is. And yeah, I'm with Dan where like if I'm playing a game that's cinematic and telling a story, like tell me the story. Like I'll read the stuff also, but like I need a lot of it to be also in the story too.
And that's my issue with 15. Because 15, oh my god, 15 so much lost potential. And that's like there's so many other different reasons. That was because Nomura then was like Nomura kept having to go back to the Final Fantasy 13 trilogy because that's what the suits wanted. They're like, oh, we need you back on the 13 trilogy. So when he was making Versus 13, like it was in development hell. And then eventually it swapped over to Tabata and it turned into 15. But then they were struggling because that engine is like really hard to work with. So like there were trailers when they shifted to 15, there were trailers that showed scenes that never ended up in the game.
Yeah.
Like the game changed to Final Fantasy 15. They had scenes that looked interesting. Like in the trailer, I was like, oh, that looks like a really cool, interesting, dark scene. And it didn't end up in the game at all. Like it was just so much lost potential. And so like there was gaps in that story, just straight up gaps. Whereas 13, I feel like there are gaps, but at least the information is there. You just have to go find it and then have the patience to read it. That's kind of like for me where that is.
I feel so. My feeling on that is that 13, if you play the game, and maybe you do need to play it more than once, but they do present a story that you can follow.
Yeah.
The logs provide a lot of the context.
Yeah, the world building.
Right, the world building, the context, which I do agree. That should just be presented in the game. But I do feel like 13 does give you a story that can be followed.
Those cutscenes are long. Like there are, like, I'm like, boy, this is going on, and not in a bad way. I play Metal Gear Solid, you know. I'm not averse to long cutscenes, you know. But like, there's a lot going on in those because like they were really shipping 13 characters, like even in the trailers and leading into the game, where you're like, boy, they really wanted to show us they could really make good character models. That's for sure, because like some of those would go on very long, and they were very cinematic and very cool. It's just you know, I don't know, like again, like for a game that like really showed a lot, I'm like, why didn't you show that stuff? You know, what some of the other stuff that was happening beneath the surface, you know. But at least it's there, unlike 15, where it's just not there at all.
Yeah,
there's nothing to read. There's nothing to look at in 15.
I appreciate that you can at least read in 13 and then get some of that context. It's just that's what I need in order to fill the gaps of like if you're gonna feed me the idea of destiny and fate, you can't just throw out those two words and be like, well, this happens because destiny. It's like that's not enough for me though. I need there to be a reason why that's the destiny. Like I need there to be so and that's where I get hung up with that game. I think when I'm trying to think back to it, I'm like, it really just is like, oh, it was their destiny, and it's like, but why was it there? And then you have the sequels, which then throws things through a loop because I vaguely remember 13-2 starts with like at the very end of that game where like some wacky stuff takes lightning away or something, and now you're playing as Sarah, which we know in that game, but like something happens, is like this like dark stuff that like then like comes in, and in that scene that's supposed to be happy at the end is not happy anymore, so it's like, oh cool, so now it's not happy.
Yeah, then it just becomes a huge time travel debacle.
Schlock. Yeah. and then that ends sadly because I think Sarah dies at the end at 13-2, right? And what's his face? The guy that's with her, I can't even remember his name because I've only played that one once.
Her companion in that game.
Yeah, who's actually a decent character. Like, he's not terrible, but I can't remember his name right now. Like, yeah,
he's a pretty standard JRPG character.
Yeah, he's fine. But yeah, then he's just kind of standing there. She's dead, and then there's lightning returns, which I've never even touched. Because at that point, I was just like, I'm done. Like, I am done.
I hear that one's got a really good combat system.
Okay. Well, yeah, that I do remember. It was almost like the Dress Sphere a little bit, right?
Yeah, it's very similar to 13's. Yeah. It's very, very similar.
Oh, is it? Okay.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, that I want a remaster of that trilogy because I do want to. I mean, right now I'm playing 13 on Game Pass, so I at least have that kind of available, and that's cool.
They look really good there. They look good. When I was replaying it in prep for this episode, I was like, I can't believe how good this game looks. Like,
dude,
it was.
Especially the character models are holy shit! How is this 2 gens ago? How? Yeah. Like, there's not kind of like this like textures that you see in characters now, or like you see all sort of the imperfections of the skin, but like they're sharp. Like the fidelity of the characters are like they're sharp and crisp. Like they look really good, and some of the backgrounds actually look pretty decent too. Like in the beginning, where where you're in that city and then everything breaks and you fall down and everything becomes crystal. Like there's like all the blues and like the whites of the crystal, like the kind of like ocean that's crystallized, like looks super gorgeous.
Yeah.
I do think it probably still holds up as one of the better Final Fantasy games visually, the way it's presented 100%, and everything. Yeah.
I love the whole concept of that world. Again, that like, and that went way more sci-fi than 10 did. Like that was literally a sci-fi, story. Like it didn't get fantasy until you kind of got onto the surface of the ground and you were like, oh, dinosaurs and magic and stuff. So
dinosaurs.
Anyways, yeah, I think 13, like Jesse says, gets like kind of unnecessarily dumped on, myself included. Like it took me going back and being like, oh, there are some good ideas here. It's just for whatever reason when that game came out, like a lot of people were charged up to hate stuff. Again, myself included. I feel like if I had stuck through it a little more, I probably would have beaten it that first time I sat down and played it.
Well, I think that's a trend with a lot of the more recent Final Fantasy games, starting with 12, because I remember 12 got dumped on a lot too because of the way they changed the combat system, made it kind of MMO.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But now it's like a cult favorite. Like a lot of people.
Dude, that story is so good. Like seriously, and I'm telling you, I always make that Star Wars joke. It literally is the story of A New Hope. Like
there's that cutscene where like there's the ships. And the music actually sounds like it would be a Star Wars.
Oh yeah, there's a princess and there's an old mentor. It's Star Wars. It's a hero's journey.
It's Star Wars.
There's a guy in a mask. He's got a sword. No, it's amazing. But like that's a game I spent years and years and years hating. Like people like that game. That's dumb. So like I'm growing a huge appreciation for these like double-digit Final Fantasies as we're going forward. Even 15, I don't hate. I think I get mad about it a lot. But like, boy, there are some great ideas in that game.
Yeah.
The combat in that game is fun too.
Awesome.
Yes, it is.
If 16's anything like that, if it's a tweaked version of that, I'd be totally happy.
16 looks crisp as hell as far as the gameplay. Like it definitely very actiony, which I know bums people out, but whatever. It is what it is.
Yeah, whatever, guys. We just got Final Fantasy 7, which was a little less actiony, so whatever.
But yeah, so I mean, I do want to chip away at 13. I do want to play it front to back again. I did beat it originally back in the day, so I did finish it. But again, this was like 11 years ago, so I don't remember a lot about it. But yeah, so for me, 10 does have the better story. But to be fair, I have played it more times. It just does overall resonate with me more. I don't think 13's story is a bad story. I just don't personally like the way that it's told is all. So that's where I land.
I think 10's got a beautiful love story. I think 10's got a lot of beautiful moments. I think the ending to 10
dude,
is so beautiful. I think it's so perfect.
Just tears.
Oh, big crocodile tears. Oh boy.
Like, no, why?
Yeah, just boy, they fall through each other as he's fading away. That's so
actually a detail I don't specifically remember. So, the Xanarkin that he's from is actually like in the dreams of the summon gods, right? The summons, the fate. Yeah, the fate. Yes, thank you.
So the fate are dreamt like Tidus, like he's not real, like So him getting plucked from their dreams, like it should have never happened.
Yeah. So when you beat the game, like you've defeated the enemy, like you beat it was a Yevon at the end, then the summons aren't necessary anymore.
Which is my favorite trope in JRPG. Like, we've ascended so far, we're gonna fight God. Like, I don't know.
But you beat Yevon, you no longer need the summons, therefore they're not dreaming. Therefore, Tidus does not exist anymore.
Yeah, and it happens right as they're trying to embrace after they've had this just roller coaster of a love story. Yes. And it is the golden standard for fictional love stories for me in video game formats. And seriously, I think it's absolutely beautiful, and that's why 10-2 should never exist, because you undid that ending. How dare you?
Although, Kyle, let's just be honest with ourselves. Snow and Sarah, right?
No. I feel like all these games keep trying to, even in 15, it's like you really care about these two. I'm like, I've never seen this girl,
dude. Jesse, if you want to join for that one, I don't know if you have strong opinions about 15, but I would like to discuss 15 for sure.
I
would absolutely join in on that one.
But officially, Jesse, with the story, where do you land?
I do give Final Fantasy X the edge, but
okay,
I do genuinely enjoy Final Fantasy 13's story.
Of course. Cool. All right. Well, see, look at us being civilized, discussing all these main details that we've all busted each other's balls about mainly Jesse has busted my balls.
I do assume that on the overall product, you guys both land on Final Fantasy X.
Yeah.
Yeah.
10's honestly it 7 is my favorite. And then 10 kind of fluctuates between second and third place. It just kind of depends on my mood, because then 9 is in there, and I replayed 9 recently. I'm like, God, this is so good. Yeah. So it kind of bounces around, but yeah, 10 is second or third favorite overall for me. So
yeah, 10 and 8 are my top two. I like the 8. It's got another good love story. That's another one I'm a big sucker for. So
yes.
My favorites are 13, 10, and 4. Those are my favorites.
Yes, 4 also very excellent. Cecil and Kain. Come
on. Good stuff. I'm dreaming of a remake of those games, and I'm not talking a pixelated remake. I'm talking a full freaking it looks like Final Fantasy 16. Yeah, and people love 6 too. Do 6 that way. Let's see Kefka. Let's see that clown bastard in some 4K.
I'm curious though, because it's so you see what they did with 7 remake. It's do we really want something with the old ones in that style, or would something almost like Tales of Arise, that style with 6 and 4 fit better? Something a little more kind of animated, hand drawn. I don't know. It's tough. You'd have to see
behind that.
Interesting, yeah. I wouldn't mind actually seeing that. They've messed with the visuals of a lot of these games on remakes plenty of times. So,
dude, Dragon Quest 11 is a gorgeous game. I don't know if either of you have played that game, but holy crap!
My daughters beat it.
Oh yeah, she did.
I would love.
That's awesome, dude. That's so
super rad.
Yeah, I'm so proud of her. Yeah, that's so cool. Yeah, that game is gorgeous. So it's I guess you'd have to kind of see it and see how you feel.
But then are we scared that now Final Fantasy is just Dragon Quest?
Sure. Well, not the Toriyama style, but
sure. But almost I would want that. I think that would kind of look good, especially imagine Cecil and.
That would be interesting. Actually,
yeah, it'd be kind of interesting seeing that way.
I do think the older ones probably could morph into the Tales or Star Ocean presentation pretty decently.
Yeah, lean into more of the anime style as opposed to realistic.
Yeah.
Yeah. We'll see. They still got a ways to go with 7 remakes.
Yeah, they're going to be making that game for another 15 years. So.
Yeah. All right, so we're at the end here. We're at about 59 minutes. We can go for like a few more minutes if you guys have anything you want to just throw out there specifically, like music.
They both have great music.
Both
have
that even excellent
controversial to say, you know?
Yeah, no, I mean Final Fantasy as a whole, the series, like I don't think any of them have like. No, never mind. 10. No, not 10-2. Sorry. 13-2 has the Chocobo theme. That's like a metal theme.
Yeah.
And my wife still to this day, because when we were together and I was playing that game, she still remembers that song. You ride this Chocobo.
Yeah,
and like it's just like metal and it's just like it's so corny. Like so corny. Like she remembers it to this day. Like she brings it up and like
it's amazing.
But most like 99.9999% of the music of Final Fantasy is amazing. So
yeah. How do you feel about them coming out with all these like pop songs for their trailers? Like 13 had, what was it, Leona Lewis did a song, and then 15
is that what they play at the end? I think when you beat the game at the end.
Yeah, they do play it at the end, but they also played it in one of the trailers. And 15 had that another pop song in their trailers too.
It's not my style of music, but I mean, I get it. It's them trying to kind of like appeal to the masses because. If you want to call it pop music, it's like it's called pop music because it's popular, right?
Right.
So you're just trying to get attention, like, oh, I know that song. What's that? And the person looks and they're like, oh, that looks like an interesting thing. What is that? And they do research and then they buy the game. So then they got your money. So
yeah, 15's like we're gonna do a rendition of "Stand by Me" and you're gonna buy it.
Yeah.
Because you know that song.
That's what it
that's what it was. Yeah.
And 10-2 did it too, where it was like, "What can I do for you?" That like J-pop song that like it opened up. I like how the game opens up too. Is that like giant ridiculous like J-pop thing. So yeah, they've been leaning into that for a little bit. I don't care, man. I'm super here for all that shit. You know, I grew up listening to J-pop and J-rock and J-rap because I was a gigantic, uncomfortable nerd growing up in high school and stuff like that. So like, that stuff's all in my wheelhouse. Yeah, play that weird stuff. I don't
care. 10 has some really somber tunes. Which I really like. I love a lot of their piano pieces. Like when it's just kind of like mostly the piano and then a little bit of like violins here and there, but like mostly piano. Like I love that stuff. And
10-2, its menu song, Eternity Memories of Light Waves. It's the song that just starts up whenever you start 10-2. One of the most beautiful piano like songs ever. Like it's absolutely beautiful.
13 I don't think has a lot of that, but like it has a pretty like the main like just battle song is like really solid, but it's kind of short though. I don't know if you notice, like it loops quickly.
Yeah, it does.
Yeah.
But it's really solid. Like
very
I really
catchy.
Like,
yeah.
Kind of like a lot of sci-fi vibes for sure.
Yeah.
But yeah, music great. The linearity, we didn't actually really specify the linearity piece between these two games.
That's a draw. I mean, people like to defend the linearity in 10 and then complain about it in 13.
I know, and I'm not here for that.
It's the same damn thing.
Yeah, it's the same thing. I will say there's more context for it in 10 because you're on an actual road pilgrimage. Like, so you're literally following a road because you're on a pilgrimage. So there's context for why you're doing it in 10. But it doesn't make it better. Like you're doing the same things in both games. And actually, can I be honest? I don't like those Final Fantasy. I like walking. I don't care. I'm here for the story.
No,
I don't need like 15. It was cool to like explore and stuff like that. Like whatever. I don't mind hallway RPGs. Like I don't care.
I think the main reason for that argument is tied into the story. I think the thing is like people will ask, why is 10 better than 13 when they're both linear games? Like the structure is the same. It's like, well, because I like the story, the way it's delivered, and like you even said, there's like some context with 10. So I think that's what it is. But people like think of the word linearity, so that's what they focus on, and then they start arguments and blah 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 blah.
13 does open up like at the very end. Like you have that whole open area. Like it's huge.
Well, you're down on Pulse, right?
Yeah.
So.
Exactly,
right. Well, that's what I was going to say. Is that 13 does have context for it too. It doesn't become open until you go down to Pulse, which is less populated. It's more open. It's more fields. It's not cities
And you are in hallways because you are in a city, like at the beginning, like you're in Cocoon and stuff like that. And it's like there is reasons you're running directly towards an objective, be it like one of the ships or whatever. So like it actually does make sense in 13 as well. Yeah. It's just, I don't know. People unfairly complain about that as well with these two games, and I don't get that as an issue personally.
Yeah,
I agree.
Yeah, definitely. And then as far as enemies, I mean, we kind of already discussed like the main bosses, Sin, slash Yevon, I guess, versus Barthandelus.
Mhm.
Yeah, I just
And I will just say the end fighting Barthandelus at the end of Final Fantasy 13 actually
It's
is a
intense.
pretty epic battle.
Oh yeah, it's like 4 parts. It's
it
a
is.
long fight. Like it's super long.
Yeah.
Like I was telling Kyle before you joined, I watched the whole thing, the video. Well, it included the credits at the end, so maybe it was closer to like 40 minutes, 35 minutes, Kyle. But
Mhm.
like that fight is like a half hour. Like cutscenes included.
It's
obviously.
long.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, like I don't know, dude. Like when I think of 10 and I'm thinking of Sin, like one of the main things I'm thinking about is that whole part where the Al Bhed is working together with all those other people, and they're at that beach,
Mhm.
and there's that giant ray that they're firing at Sin, and he has the shield, and they're
The
like,
beach
oh,
part
they're gonna pierce the shield, and then he just like does this like blast and just literally like eviscerates everything, and there's like dead chocobos on the beach, like
yeah.
that shit is
That's
a
dark.
bummer too.
Yeah,
Like,
it's a bit dark. Yeah.
like so.
Well, and you meet a bunch of people, like, you know, like I think you're talking to people, and you're getting like a feel for like the soldiers that are on the battlefield, and then they all pretty much
Yes.
die. Like it's
Yeah.
like there's some really interesting stuff where like 10 really hijacks your emotions a few times in this, across its journey, you know.
Yeah. But then like with 13, there's almost a little bit of like kind of like how you were saying with Waka and like him being racist. It's almost like there's almost sort of like an angle there with like the fal'Cie, or becoming a l'Cie, sorry, versus all the other people, like kind of like
shunned.
looking down on them, and they're trying to actually get rid of them, right? That's what they're doing. They're trying to shuttle them off of Cocoon.
Yes,
Because they're like, yeah, no, we don't want you here. You're like, you're this thing. Like, we don't want you.
You may have
here.
had contact with like this, this foreigner, or whatever. So yeah, it opens up pretty dark too. Yeah, a lot of death. You watch a mom die, as we were talking about with Hope.
Yeah,
he harbors this like want to murder Snow the entire game.
Yeah, he blames him for her death.
There's a lot of really, both of these games have some pretty like dark sides to it. I would definitely.
That's Final Fantasy for you as a whole. Like, I feel like people just look at JRPGs sometimes as just corny nonsense, but like Final Fantasy
always has a foot in the darkness. Yeah, they do.
Yeah, oh, absolutely, for sure, definitely. Yeah, I mean, I think that's pretty much all I can think of. Do you guys have anything else?
No.
All right.
No, I think I'm good.
Well, Kyle, we did it. We got Jesse to admit that 10 is better.
Yeah, I heard it. We have him on tape. It's recorded.
No,
I do agree that 10 is traditionally better.
Yeah. I think it is good to pump up something that people actively hate. I think it's good I think it's good to stand behind it. I think it's good to like scream out, y'all are all dumb. It's actually good, because I feel like because how many times does history change itself where it's like when Wind Waker came out, everybody hated it. Whenever it came out again, everyone's like, this was my favorite. I'm like, I was there. We all hated it. Every one of us did, So like there's revision history that happens all the time, and like it takes people like Jesse, like, because even again, like I was hating on this game until I played it for this episode, and I was like, oh, there is so much good stuff going on in this game. So it's like things do change because you change as a person, and I think it's important to remind people, hey, you're dumb, try that again, just like we have to try foods again that we don't like.
I have noticed that shift when people post about Final Fantasy 13 in the various groups that we're in. It gets a more positive reception than it used to.
It does.
Yeah.
It does.
It's like Star Wars. Like these like we all spend time hating them, for the first like 4 years of their lifespan, and then those 5 to 6 year range.
I mean,
they hit their half-life, and we start enjoying. I don't know the equation. I haven't cracked it yet, but
what I love about this series is like basically every single Final Fantasy is someone's starting point.
Yeah.
So that and that usually, because like Final Fantasy 8 was my starting point, and that one does get looked down on, but I love 8.
8's awesome. I think
so.
People
It's
who
like
hate 8 don't get it.
I'm a bit of a downer on 8.
Go back and play that story, Jesse. It's good.
I think it's
some gameplay stuff that sucks. So
I think it's the combat. I think Jesse is down on the combat. Maybe.
Yeah, there's some stuff there that like is is undeniably bad, but boy, that story.
But I think the three of us can agree that Final Fantasy as a whole, as a series, is very wonderful. And I think if you've never tried any of them, you should give them a chance.
We are living in the best timeline because we live with Final Fantasy.
That's right. And I look forward to 16 because I think 16 looks really like it has. I mean, we only have one trailer, but I mean, I don't know. I felt like it looked like it has a lot of potential. So I
think it's gonna blow us away.
I just hope they bring back more traditional Magic.
To me, it looked like that to me.
It looked
like it was very fantasy.
Yeah. Very high fantasy, like dark fantasy. Yeah.
Yes.
Definitely.
Yeah. I think we're getting that, and I think that them not showing too much is them obviously going, "Hey, we learned our lesson. We'll show it when it's ready."
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. All right. Well, I think that wraps it up. I appreciate you guys finally getting together with me to do this. We've been planning this, I think, for a while.
Yeah.
So yeah, this was great. Good stuff. I'm glad we were adults and we discussed instead of yelled.
Yeah.
Jesse. But yeah, just check us out on our YouTube. This show is just on YouTube. I don't carve it out as like a podcast because I also like to kind of maybe edit in some stuff, and this is a visual medium, this particular show. So please visit our channel, the Car and Jen podcast, where we do our regular podcast over there. Like I had mentioned earlier, that Kyle and I are on. And Jesse has joined us occasionally from time to time. So yeah, please go on there and smash that like, subscribe, I don't know, whatever.
Yep, all that blurb stuff.
If you like this, just hit the buttons, all the buttons, please.
Share it with your best homie,
Yeah, with your grandma,
Yep.
Just whoever. All right, well, thanks guys, appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for having me on. This was fun.
Great.